The Galactic Council had seen many species rise and fall across the stars, but none had prepared them for humanity's peculiar brand of madness. Commander Zyxtel of the Vraxian Empire watched the surveillance feeds with all four of his eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible," he muttered, his chitinous mandibles clicking nervously. On the screen, a single human boy, no more than 12 cycles old by their primitive counting, stood in the cargo bay of the decimated research station. His name was William Chen, son of Dr. Sarah Chen, the xenobiologist who had insisted on studying the most dangerous predators in known space. And now those predators surrounded him. The Kethara were apex hunters, engineered by an ancient civilization as living weapons before they'd escaped and multiplied across 3 star systems. Adults stood 3 meters tall, with obsidian scales, retractable claws that could slice through starship hulls, and a hunting intelligence that had earned them the nickname Void Dragons. Their queen, Shavara, was legendary, a creature who had single-handedly destroyed a Vraxian battle cruiser when they'd attempted to colonize her breeding grounds. She stood before William now, her crimson eyes locked on the small human, her massive form coiled and ready to strike. Behind her, the cargo bay walls were scored with claw marks and splattered with the blue blood of the station's automated defenses. Maya, the queen's daughter and heir to the pride, watched from the shadows. Unlike her mother's midnight scales, Maya bore the silver-blue coloring of a juvenile, still 6 months from her final molt into adulthood. She was smaller, barely the size of an earth lion, but no less deadly. Her tail lashed back and forth as she studied the human boy with curious, intelligent eyes. William didn't run. That was the first thing that puzzled Zyxtel as he watched from his command ship in high orbit. The boy should have been fleeing, screaming, activating emergency protocols. Instead, he stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides, his brown eyes meeting Shavara's gaze without flinching. "Dr. Chen's son has inherited her insanity," Zyxtel's second officer observed. But Zyxtel noticed something else. The boy's breathing was controlled, deliberate. His posture wasn't frozen with fear, it was calm, centered. And in his right hand, barely visible on the grainy feed, was a small device that Zyxtel recognized with growing horror. A biometric scanner, the same kind Dr. Chen had used in her research. "What is that human child doing?" Zyxtel demanded, zooming in the feed. William spoke then, his voice small but steady in the cavernous cargo bay. "Easy, Shavara, I know you remember me. I'm Sarah's son. I used to help my mom during feeding times." The Kethara queen tilted her massive head, her forked tongue tasting the air. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, from the shadows behind her, came a sound that made every warrior on Zyxtel's bridge reach for their weapons. A chirp. Not the bone-chilling screech of an adult Kethara on the hunt, but a high-pitched, almost melodic trill, and then another, and another. From the darkness emerged 5 Kethara cubs, barely larger than Earth housecats, their scales still soft and downy, their eyes wide with innocent curiosity. They tumbled over each other in their eagerness, paying no attention to their queen mother's warning growl. They were rushing toward William. "Impossible," Zyxtel breathed again. "The cubs should be attacking. Kethara young are taught to hunt from birth." But these cubs weren't hunting, they were playing. The first cub reached William and immediately began rubbing against his legs, purring, actually purring, with a sound that resonated through the cargo bay. William dropped to his knees and the other cubs swarmed him, climbing onto his shoulders, batting at his hair, chirping and trilling with unmistakable joy. Maya emerged fully from the shadows then, and Zyxtel finally understood. The silver-blue juvenile moved with purpose toward the human boy, and as she approached, William reached out his hand. Not to defend himself, but to scratch behind the ridge of horns on her head, right in the spot that. "By the void," the second officer whispered, "he knows their pleasure points." Maya's eyes half-closed in contentment, a deep, rumbling purr emanating from her chest. She pressed her massive head into William's small hand, nearly knocking him over. The cubs took this as an invitation to pile onto both of them, creating a squirming mass of scales, claws, and one laughing human child. And Shavara, the predator queen who had terrorized 3 star systems, who had never backed down from any challenger, who had killed 50 Vraxian warriors in single combat, stepped back. She watched her offspring play with this tiny, soft, absurdly fragile human, and something shifted in her ancient, predatory gaze. Zyxtal, who had studied Cathara behavior for decades, recognized it immediately. Acceptance, recognition, trust. How? His tactical officer demanded. How did a human child earn the trust of the most dangerous predator in the sector? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Chen's last research log, recovered from the station's intact memory core, began playing over the bridge speakers. Day 247 of observation, Dr. Chen's voice crackled. I've made a breakthrough. The Cathara aren't just predators, they're social creatures with complex family bonds. Today, William helped me feed the cubs for the first time. Shavara watched us carefully, but when she saw how gently he handled her young, how he respected their space while still engaging with them, I swear I saw recognition in her eyes. Recognition of a fellow parent, perhaps. Or simply someone who sees her children as more than monsters. The log continued. The cubs have imprinted on William. It's extraordinary. They treat him like a strange, hairless littermate. Maya especially has bonded with him. She brings him presents, dead station rats mostly, and allows him to groom her. William's named all of them. Maya, Zephyr, Nova, Comet, and Starfear. He says if we treat them like the intelligent beings they are, they'll respond in kind. On the screen, William was laughing as the cubs wrestled with each other, using him as a climbing structure. Maya lay beside him protectively, her tail curled around the boy in an unmistakably defensive posture. Even Shavara had settled onto her haunches, watching the scene with what could only be described as maternal satisfaction. Sir, the weapons officer reported, the automated station defenses were what attacked the Cathara first. Dr. Chen's security protocols failed after she was killed in the initial station breach. It was a pirate raid, not the Cathara. The predators only came here seeking shelter after the pirates damaged their habitat dome. Zyxtal felt his warrior's certainty crumbling, and the boy survived the pirate attack by hiding in the research labs. When the Cathara arrived, he went to them deliberately. Of course he did, because humans were mad enough to see apex predators as potential friends, mad enough to teach their children to respect rather than fear. Mad enough to believe that bonds could form across species barriers that nature itself had erected. William stood now, covered in cub saliva and small scratches that would heal, grinning like he just had the adventure of his life. Maya stood beside him, her shoulder at his eye level, her posture clearly protective. When Shavara finally approached, William didn't flinch. He simply bowed his head in respect. The predator queen lowered her massive head and gently, impossibly gently, touched her snout to the boy's forehead. A gesture the Vraxians had only seen between Cathara mothers and their own young. Prepare a shuttle, Zyxtal ordered quietly. Tell them we're extracting a human youth and his companions. All of them, sir, the second officer asked incredulously. Zyxtal watched as William began leading the entire Cathara family toward the station's docking bay, the cubs tumbling around his feet, Maya walking at his side, and Shavara following behind like a guardian deity made flesh. All of them, Zyxtal confirmed. And note in the official report, humanity's most dangerous weapon isn't their technology or their tactics. It's their inexplicable ability to turn the galaxy's apex predators into oversized pets. As the shuttle descended to collect the strangest family unit in galactic history, Zyxtal made a mental note to update the Council's threat assessment of humanity. Not because they were dangerous warriors, though they were. Not because they were brilliant scientists, though they were that too. But because any species insane enough to befriend void dragons was capable of absolutely anything. And in a galaxy full of predators, humanity's superpower was simple. They refused to see monsters, only potential friends who hadn't been properly introduced yet. Even the Predator Queen had stepped back in the face of that particular brand of madness. And somehow, watching William Chen scratch Maya behind her horns while she purred like distant thunder, Zyxtel suspected the galaxy would never be quite the same.